The Deep Space Monitoring Station on the edge of Imperial territory was a quiet place. It had always been quiet. Nothing interesting ever happened in Sector 44. The officers stationed there called it the graveyard shift of the galaxy, because the only things that ever passed through were dead rocks and old radiation from dying stars. Admiral Tejo had been posted there as a punishment. He knew it. Everyone knew it. 3 years ago, he had disagreed with the High Council during a war meeting. He had told them their battle plans were wasteful and stupid. He had been right, of course. The Empire lost 4,000 ships in that campaign. But being right did not matter in the Galactic Empire. What mattered was keeping your mouth shut and obeying. So now Tejo sat in his command chair on the bridge of the Imperial destroyer, Iron Veil, staring at empty space. His crew of 600 had grown lazy. Half of them played card games in the lower decks. The other half slept too much. Tejo did not blame them. There was nothing to do here. His second-in-command, Commander Yuna, was the only one who still took her job seriously. She stood at the sensor console every day, watching the screens with sharp eyes. She was young, maybe 30 cycles old, with short black hair and a scar across her left cheek from an old training accident. She never smiled. Tejo liked that about her. In the Empire's Navy, people who smiled too much were usually hiding something. It was Yuna who saw it first. "Admiral," she said. Her voice was calm, but Tejo had served with her long enough to hear the tiny shake in it. "There is something on the long-range sensors." Tejo leaned forward. "What kind of something?" "A ship. Single vessel. It just dropped out of faster-than-light travel, about 200,000 kilometers from our position." Tejo frowned. No one came to Sector 44. There was nothing here worth visiting. "What species?" Yuna pressed several buttons. The screen in front of her filled with data. Numbers and wave patterns scrolled across it. She stared at them for a long time, and Tejo watched her face change. First, there was confusion. Then, disbelief. Then, something close to fear. "I do not know," she said slowly. That answer made Tejo sit up straight. Yuna knew every ship signature in the Imperial database. She had memorized over 9,000 vessel types from more than 300 species. For her to say she did not know was like a doctor saying he had never seen blood before. "Put it on the main screen," Tejo ordered. The large display at the front of the bridge flickered to life. At first, Tejo thought the sensors were broken. The shape on the screen did not look like any ship he had ever seen. It was long and narrow, like a blade made of dark metal. There were no visible weapon ports, no shield generators on the outside, no engine exhaust trails. It moved through space silently, like a shadow sliding across water. "How big is it?" Tejo asked. "About 300 meters long," Yuna answered. "Small by our standards. But Admiral, the energy output does not match the size." "What do you mean?" "That ship is producing more energy than our entire fleet of 12 destroyers combined." The bridge went silent. Every officer who had been pretending to work now turned and stared at the screen. Tejo felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In 40 years of service, he had learned one simple rule. When something produced that much energy, it was either a power station or a weapon, and power stations did not fly through space. "Can you identify the broadcast frequency?" Tejo asked. Yuna worked the controls. "Yes, it is a human frequency." The silence got heavier. Someone at the back of the bridge let out a small laugh, like they thought it was a joke. No one else laughed. Humans. Tejo knew about them, of course. Every officer in the Imperial Navy studied the species catalog during training. Humans were listed under Category 9, the lowest classification. They were a young species from a small blue planet in an unimportant corner of the galaxy. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel about 80 years ago. Their technology was supposed to be primitive. Their ships were supposed to be slow, weak, and poorly built. The Empire had never considered them a threat. They were farmers, builders, soft creatures who spent most of their time arguing with each other. But the thing on Taeho's screen did not look soft. It did not look primitive. It looked like something that had been designed by a species that understood war at a very deep level. "That cannot be human," said Lieutenant Jaewon from the weapons console. He was a tall man with a nervous habit of cracking his knuckles. He was cracking them now, loudly. "Humans do not build ships like that. Maybe they stole it from someone." "The frequency is definitely human," Yuna repeated. "And the hull material, I am running an analysis now." She paused. Her eyes grew wide. "Admiral, the outer hull is made of a compound that does not exist in our database. It is not any material known to the Empire." Taeho stood up from his chair. He walked slowly to the front of the bridge and stared at the dark shape on the screen. His heart was beating faster than he wanted it to. He was not afraid. He had fought in 12 major wars and survived all of them. But he was careful. And right now, every instinct he had was telling him to be very, very careful. "Open a channel," he said. The communications officer, a young woman named Bo-Ra, pressed the button. "Channel open, Admiral." "Unidentified vessel, this is Admiral Taeho of the Galactic Empire's Outer Defense Fleet. You have entered restricted Imperial space. Identify yourself and state your purpose, or you will be treated as a hostile." 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Then the reply came. It was not in the Imperial Common Language. It was in a human tongue, rough, simple, and strangely warm. The translation system took a moment to process it, and then the words appeared on the screen in Imperial text. "Hello there, this is Captain Do-Yun of the vessel Baiko. We do not mean any trouble. We are just passing through. We will be out of your space soon. Sorry for the inconvenience." Taeho read the message twice. The tone of it bothered him. It was too casual, too friendly. No species talked to an Imperial admiral like that. Most species trembled when they saw a single Imperial destroyer. This human was talking to 12 of them like he had bumped into someone at a market. "Admiral," Yuna said quietly, stepping close to him so the others could not hear. "I have finished the full scan. That ship has no visible weapons. None? None that our sensors can detect. But the energy readings are increasing. Whatever that ship is, it is not running at full power. It is resting." Taeho looked at the screen again. The dark blade of a ship hung there in the emptiness of space, calm and still. It was not moving toward them. It was not moving away. It was just waiting. "Send a full report to the High Council on the capital world," Taeho ordered. "Include all sensor data, the energy readings, and the hull analysis. Mark it as priority 1. "Yes, Admiral," Bo-Ra said. Taeho sat back down in his chair. He did not take his eyes off the screen. He could feel it, the way an old soldier feels a storm coming before the sky changes color. The Empire had ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered over 500 species. They had destroyed civilizations, burned planets, and built the largest military force the universe had ever seen. But right now, sitting in his chair and looking at that single small ship, Admiral Taeho felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt unsure. And in the quiet of the bridge, with the soft hum of the ship around him, that feeling spread. It moved from him to Yuna, from Yuna to Bo-Ra, from Bo-Ra to every officer on the bridge. No one said it out loud. No one needed to. They could all feel it. Something had changed. Something had entered their space, and the galaxy would not be the same after today. Taeho folded his hands and waited for the council's reply. He hoped they would be smart about this. He hoped they would be careful. But deep in his gut, he knew they would not be. The Empire did not do careful. The Empire did powerful. The Empire did crushing. The Empire did fear. And for the first time in 10,000 years, Taeho wondered if that would be enough. The capital world of the Galactic Empire was called Varath. It was a planet so large that it took 3 days to fly around it at full speed. The entire surface was covered in metal and glass. Cities stretched from pole to pole, towers rising so high that their tops disappeared into the clouds. Billions of beings lived there, from hundreds of different conquered species, all serving the Empire in one way or another. At the very center of the largest city stood the Imperial Council Hall. It was a building shaped like a black pyramid, made of stone that was older than most civilizations. Inside, the most powerful people in the galaxy made decisions that affected trillions of lives. They did this over expensive food and cold drinks, and most of them had never held a weapon in their lives. High Counselor Ji-won was the leader of them all. He was old, nearly 200 cycles, kept alive by the best medical technology the Empire could offer. His face was thin and sharp. His eyes were small and dark, and his voice was soft in the way that powerful people's voices often are. He did not need to shout. When he spoke, everyone listened, because everyone was afraid of what would happen if they did not. Ji-won was eating his morning meal when Admiral Taeho's report arrived. An assistant brought it to him on a data screen. Ji-won read it slowly, chewing his food. When he finished reading, he set the screen down and continued eating. "Counselor?" the assistant asked nervously. "The report is marked Priority 1. "I can see that," Ji-won said. He took a sip of his drink. "And I can also see that it is about humans." "Yes, Counselor." "Humans." Ji-won said the word the way someone might say the name of an insect. "Tell me, how many times in the last 100 years has some border admiral sent me a Priority 1 report that turned out to be nothing?" The assistant swallowed. I do not have that number, Counselor." "The answer is 47 times. 47 times someone has woken me up or interrupted my meal to tell me that something dangerous was at our borders. And 47 times it was a lost merchant ship, or a broken sensor, or an officer trying to get promoted by pretending to find a threat." Ji-won pushed his plate away and stood up. He was tall, even for his age, and he moved with the slow confidence of someone who had never been challenged in a meaningful way. "Humans are Category 9, he said. "They are nothing. Their best ships are slower than our cargo transports. Their weapons cannot even scratch Imperial hull plating. I have read the intelligence reports. I have seen the assessments. Humans are farmers who got lucky and found an old engine design floating in space. That is the only reason they can travel between stars at all." "But Counselor," the assistant said carefully, "Admiral Taeho's sensor data shows energy readings that are—" "Sensor errors," Ji-won said, waving his hand. "Sector 44 is full of radiation from dead stars. It plays tricks on old equipment. Tell the Admiral to destroy the ship and send me the wreckage. I want to finish my breakfast." The assistant bowed and left. The order was sent. But the report did not just go to Ji-won. It also went through the Imperial Intelligence Bureau, where thousands of analysts sat in dark rooms, reading reports from every corner of the galaxy. Most of them were bored. Most of them were tired. Most of them looked at data all day and found nothing interesting. Hana was different. She was 26 cycles old, which made her one of the youngest analysts in the bureau. She had short hair that she never bothered to style, and she wore the same gray uniform every day, without caring if it was wrinkled. She had been top of her class at the Imperial Academy, graduating with the highest score in data analysis in 30 years. Her reward for being so brilliant was a small desk in a dark corner of the bureau, where her supervisors gave her the reports that no one else wanted to read. She had been reading Taeho's report for the 3rd time when something caught her eye. The hull composition data. Yuna's analysis had flagged it as unknown, which was strange, but not impossible. New materials were discovered from time to time. But Hana did not just look at what was there. She looked at what was missing. And what was missing was any trace of the base elements that every known spacefaring species used in their ship construction. Every species in the galaxy, all 312 of them, built their ships using some combination of the same 47 base metals and compounds. These materials existed throughout the galaxy, in asteroids, in planetary cores, in gas clouds. They were the building blocks of space travel. It was like how every house needed some form of wood or stone or metal. You could build a house in many different ways, but you always needed basic materials. This human ship used none of them, not a single one. Hana felt her hands go cold. She pulled up every intelligence file the Empire had on humans. There were not many. The last time anyone had actually visited Earth, the human homeworld, was 60 years ago. A small Imperial observation team had gone there, looked around, and filed a short report. Primitive, disorganized, no threat. Recommend continued classification as Category 9. 60 years. A lot could change in 60 years. Hana pulled up the observation team's old report and read it carefully. They had visited Earth during a time the humans called a transition period. The humans had been fighting among themselves, as they often did. Their technology was basic. Their ships were slow. The observation team had laughed about it in their notes. One of them had written, "These creatures can barely leave their own star system. They will destroy themselves before they become relevant." But there was a small note at the bottom of the report, written by the team's science officer. It was easy to miss. Hana almost missed it herself. It said, "One area of concern. Humans advance their technology at an unusual rate. In the span of just 200 years, they went from ground-based vehicles to interstellar travel. This rate of advancement is approximately 10 times faster than the galactic average. Recommend monitoring." Hana stared at that note for a long time. 10 times faster than the galactic average, and no one had monitored them. For 60 years, no one had gone back to check. She started doing math in her head. If humans advanced 10 times faster than normal, and they had been left alone for 60 years, then in terms of technological growth, it was as if 600 years had passed. When the Empire first started its expansion 600 years ago, it had gone from a single-planet civilization to controlling a quarter of the galaxy. Hana's mouth went dry. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Teiho's fleet. She was not supposed to do this. Analysts were not allowed to contact fleet commanders directly. There was a chain of command, and she was at the very bottom of it. But something in her gut told her that the chain of command was about to get a lot of people killed. "Admiral Teiho," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "This is Analyst Hana, from the Imperial Intelligence Bureau. I need you to listen to me carefully. Do not engage that ship." There was a pause. Then Teiho's voice came back, tired and heavy. "I have already received orders from High Counselor Jiwan. He wants the ship destroyed. Admiral, please. The hull material on that vessel is completely unknown. Their energy output is beyond anything we have on record. And the last time anyone checked on humans was 60 years ago. We have no idea what they have become." Another pause. Hana could hear the sounds of a busy bridge in the background. Then Teiho spoke again, and his voice was quieter now. "I know, I have been looking at the same data you have, but orders are orders. If I disobey the High Counselor, I will be executed. If you attack that ship, you might be destroyed," Hana said. "Then I will be destroyed following orders, and my family will receive a pension. If I disobey, my family will receive nothing, and my name will be erased from Imperial records." Hana closed her eyes. She understood. In the Empire, obedience was not a choice. It was survival. The system was built so that even smart people, even people who could see disaster coming, would march straight into it, because the cost of disobedience was worse. "Admiral," she said one last time, "at least be careful. Do not fire first. Let them make the first move." Taeho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I will try." The channel closed. Hana sat alone at her small desk in her dark corner. She looked at the data on her screen. The strange hull, the impossible energy readings, the 60-year gap in intelligence. She thought about the science officer's note. 10 times faster. She pulled up a map of the galaxy on her screen. The Empire was shown in red, spread across thousands of star systems. At the very edge, in a tiny spot of blue, was human space. It was so small, it was almost invisible. Hana looked at that tiny blue spot, and for the first time in her career, she felt real fear. Not because of what she could see, but because of what she could not. 60 years of silence, 60 years of growth, 60 years of a species that moved 10 times faster than anyone else, building things in the dark, with materials that no one in the galaxy had ever seen. She saved her analysis to her personal files. She made a copy and hid it. She just had a feeling that someone, someday, would need to know the truth about what happened next. Then she sat back and waited, because that was all she could do. Somewhere in Sector 44, 12 Imperial destroyers were turning their weapons toward a single dark ship. And on the capital world, a High Counselor finished his breakfast, completely certain that by lunchtime, the problem would be solved. He was wrong. The problem was just beginning. Admiral Taeho gave the order to surround the human vessel at exactly 1200 hours Imperial Standard Time. His 12 destroyers moved into a wide circle around the dark ship, their weapons powered and ready. Each destroyer was over a kilometer long, covered in thick armor plating, and carrying enough firepower to turn a small moon into dust. Together they were one of the most powerful forces in the outer fleet. The human ship sat in the middle of the circle like a stone in a pond. It had not moved since it arrived. It had not raised shields. It had not powered weapons. It just floated there, dark and quiet, as if it did not notice the 12 warships pointing their guns at it. Taeho watched from his command chair, his hands gripping the armrests. He had fought many battles. He had destroyed enemy fleets. He had given the order to fire hundreds of times without hesitation. But today, something felt different. Today, his body was telling him something his mind did not want to hear. "All ships in position," Yuna reported from beside him. Her voice was steady, but her eyes kept moving back to the sensor screen. "Weapons locked on target." "Good," Taeho said. He looked at the human ship one more time. Then he did something that surprised everyone on the bridge. "Open a channel to the human vessel." Yuna looked at him. She did not question him. She simply nodded to Bora, who opened the channel. "Captain Duyun," Taeho said, "this is Admiral Taeho. I have received orders from the High Council of the Galactic Empire. You are commanded to power down your vessel and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply, we will open fire." The reply came quickly this time. The same warm, casual voice filled the bridge speakers. The translation appeared on the screen a moment later. "Admiral Taeho, this is Captain Duyun. I understand your position, and I respect that you are following orders. But I cannot power down my ship. I have people who need me. There are human colonists stranded on one of your mining moons in this sector. They sent a distress call, and I came to help them. That is all I am here to do. Once I pick them up, I will leave. You have my word." Taeho frowned. Human colonists? On an Imperial mining moon? He had not heard anything about this. He looked at Yuna, who shook her head. She did not know about it either. "There are no human colonists in this sector," Taeho said. "With respect, Admiral, there are. About 200 of them. They were part of an independent mining operation. Your empire does not recognize independent mining claims, so officially they do not exist. But they are real, and they are in trouble. Their life support is failing, If I do not reach them in the next 6 hours, they will die. Taeho sat very still. He could hear the truth in the human's voice. It was not the voice of a soldier or a spy. It was the voice of someone on a rescue mission. Someone in a hurry. Someone who did not have time for this. But orders were orders. Captain Doyun, I am sorry about your people, but my orders are clear. Power down your vessel, or I will fire. There was a pause, a long one. When Doyun spoke again, his voice was different. It was still calm, still warm, but there was something underneath it now. Something hard, like iron buried under soft earth. Admiral, I have asked politely. I will ask one more time. Please let me pass. I do not want any trouble. But those are my people on that moon, and I am going to get them. That is not a threat. That is just a fact. Lieutenant Jaewon at the weapons console shifted in his seat. Admiral, should I fire? Taeho looked at the sensor data one more time. The energy readings from the human ship had changed. They were climbing. Slowly, steadily, like someone taking a deep breath before lifting something heavy. The ship still had no visible weapons, no shields, nothing that looked dangerous. But the energy kept climbing. Admiral, Jaewon pressed. Hana's words echoed in Taeho's mind. Do not fire first. Let them make the first move. But Jiwon's orders were clear. Destroy the ship. And in the Empire, disobedience meant death. Not just for him, but for his family, his crew, his legacy. Taeho closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he opened them. All ships, open fire. 12 destroyers fired at once. Hundreds of plasma beams, each one hot enough to melt through a mountain, streaked across space toward the small dark ship. The bridge of the Iron Veil lit up with the glow of weapons fire. The sound of the cannons shook the floor. The beams hit the human ship. And nothing happened. Taeho leaned forward, his eyes wide. The plasma beams struck the hull of the Baiko, and simply stopped. They did not bounce off. They did not explode. They hit the dark surface and disappeared like water poured onto hot sand. The ship did not shake. It did not move. It did not even glow from the heat. Full power! Taeho shouted. All weapons, full power! The destroyers fired again, harder this time. The big guns, the ones designed to crack open enemy capital ships, opened up with everything they had. The space between the fleet and the human ship became a wall of white-hot energy. It was the kind of firepower that had ended civilizations. It was the kind of firepower that had burned planets down to bare rock. The Baiko absorbed all of it. Every single beam, every single shot. The ship sat there, dark and quiet, and took it all without a scratch. Then it moved. It was fast, so fast that the sensors barely tracked it. One moment, the Baiko was in the center of the circle. The next moment, it was beside the first destroyer, the Stormblade. Taeho watched on the main screen as something happened to the Stormblade that he could not understand. The lights on the destroyer flickered once, and then went out. All of them. Every light, every system, every engine. The massive ship went completely dark and began to drift. The Baiko moved again. It passed by the second destroyer, the Iron Fang, and the same thing happened. Lights out, systems dead, silence. 7 seconds. That was how long it took. In 7 seconds, the Baiko passed by all 12 destroyers, and every single one of them went dark. No explosions, no damage to the hulls, no casualties. The ships were simply turned off, like someone had walked through a room and flipped every switch. On the bridge of the Iron Veil, the lights died. The screens went black. The hum of the engines stopped. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, casting everything in a dim red glow. Taeho sat in his chair, staring at nothing, his hands still gripping the armrests. What? Jaewon whispered in the darkness. What just happened? Yuna was already checking the emergency systems. Her hands were shaking. All primary systems are offline. Weapons, engines, shields, communications, everything. Life support is on emergency backup. We have about 4 hours before that runs out too. The other ships? Taeho asked. Same. All 12 ships are dead in space. Taeho felt like the floor had dropped away beneath him. 12 Imperial destroyers, carrying a combined crew of over 7,000 soldiers, had been disabled in 7 seconds. And the human ship had not even fired a weapon. At least not any weapon they could see. It was the only system still working. And even it was barely functional. A voice came through, warm and a little sad. Admiral Taeho, this is Captain Doyun. I'm sorry about your ships. Everything should come back online in about 3 hours. Nothing is broken. I just turned off your power cores for a while. Your people are safe. No one is hurt. Taeho could not speak. He tried, but the words would not come. Doyun continued. I told you I did not want any trouble. I meant it. I am going to that mining moon now to pick up my people. After that, I will leave your space, and you will never see me again. I hope you understand. The channel went quiet. Taeho sat in the dim red light of his dead ship and tried to process what had just happened. 12 warships, 7 seconds. No weapons fire, no damage, just power off. As if the human had simply reached into each ship and pressed a button. Admiral, Yuna said softly. She was standing beside him, her face pale in the emergency lighting. That ship did not fire a single shot. I know. It disabled our entire fleet without any visible weapon system. I know. How is that possible? Taeho did not answer. He was thinking about something Hana had said. The hull material was unknown. The energy output was beyond anything in Imperial records, and humans advanced 10 times faster than other species. He thought about the Baekho, that dark, silent blade of a ship that had taken the full firepower of 12 destroyers and simply swallowed it. He thought about Captain Doyun's voice, calm and polite, even as he was being shot at. Not angry, not scared, not even annoyed, just polite. The way someone is polite when they are so much stronger than you that your attacks mean nothing to them. At his crew, sitting in silence, their faces lit by the red emergency lights. At Yuna, who had seen everything and still could not believe it. At Jaewon, whose hands were no longer cracking his knuckles because they were shaking too much to move. When communications come back online, Taeho said, his voice very quiet, I need to send a message to the High Council. What will you tell them? Yuna asked. Taeho looked out at the dark space where the Baekho had already disappeared, moving toward the mining moon to save its people. He thought about his report. He thought about what words he could use to explain what had just happened to people like Jiwon, who sat in their towers and ate their fancy meals, and believed that the Empire was the strongest thing in the universe. The truth, Taeho said. I will tell them the truth, and I will pray that they are smart enough to listen. But even as he said it, he knew they would not listen. Because the Empire never listened. The Empire only spoke. The Empire only commanded. The Empire only destroyed. And for the first time in 10,000 years, something out there could speak louder. The news hit the capital world like a bomb. Not a physical bomb. The Empire was used to those. This was worse. This was information. And information, when it is bad enough, can do more damage than any weapon ever built. Taeho's report arrived at the Imperial Council Hall 3 hours after his ships came back online, exactly as Doyun had promised. Every system rebooted perfectly. No damage, no missing data, no dead crew members. It was as if the entire fleet had just taken a short nap and woken up again. That detail, more than anything else, was what scared people the most, because it showed control. The human had not been trying to hurt them. He had not even been trying to scare them. He had simply moved them out of his way, the way a person moves a chair that is blocking a door. Teiho's message was clear, detailed, and honest. He described everything: the ship's appearance, the hull material, the energy readings, the failed attack, the 7-second shutdown. He attached all the sensor data, all the recordings, everything, and at the end, he added a single recommendation: do not provoke the humans further until we understand what we are dealing with. High Counselor Jiwan read the report in his private office. He read it twice. Then he threw his data screen across the room, and it shattered against the wall. "Get me the fleet commanders," he said to his assistant. "All of them, now." Within 1 hour, every senior admiral and general in the Galactic Empire was connected through a secure communication network. Their faces appeared on screens that lined the walls of Jiwan's office. There were 42 of them, representing the largest military force in known space. Over 2 million warships, billions of soldiers, enough firepower to destroy every star in 100 light years. "You have all read the report," Jiwan said. His voice was controlled, but everyone in the room could see the anger in his eyes. An admiral in Sector 44 was humiliated by a single human ship. His fleet of 12 destroyers was disabled in seconds, without the enemy firing a visible weapon. "I want explanations, I want solutions, and I want them now." General Sun Wu, commander of the Corps Armada, was the first to speak. He was a large man, with a thick neck, and a reputation for solving problems with overwhelming force. He had never lost a battle, mostly because he always brought 10 times more ships than he needed. "Counselor, this is clearly an advanced cloaking device, combined with some kind of energy-dampening weapon. Impressive, but not unbeatable. The outer fleet is old and poorly equipped. If my Corps Armada had been there, the result would have been different. I recommend we send a full battle group to Sector 44 immediately. 200 capital ships should be more than enough to capture or destroy one vessel." Several admirals nodded in agreement. Jiwan seemed to relax slightly. But then Admiral Mirai, the head of Imperial Intelligence Operations, spoke up. She was a thin woman with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been quiet until now, and when she spoke, everyone listened, because Mirai only spoke when she had something important to say. "With respect, General, I do not think 200 ships will be enough." Sung Wu frowned. "Against one ship?" "Against the humans, not one ship, all of them." The room went quiet. Mirai pressed a button, and a data file appeared on every screen. "I have been looking into this since the report arrived. I contacted our deep space observation posts on the border of human territory. What they found is concerning." She paused, letting the word hang in the air. Mirai never used the word concerning lightly. Over the past 60 years, human territory has expanded. When we last checked, they controlled 12 star systems. Based on current observations, they now control at least 97. Murmurs spread through the connected commanders. 97 systems in 60 years was fast. Very fast. The Empire had taken over 1,000 years to reach that number. Additionally, Mirai continued, our observation posts have detected large-scale construction activity in multiple human systems. Shipyards, orbital factories, research stations. The scale is significant. We estimate that the humans have built somewhere between 8,000 and 15,000 vessels in the past 3 decades. General Sang-Woo scoffed. 15,000 ships? Even if that is true, their technology is inferior. Numbers mean nothing without quality. Which brings me to my next point. Mirai's voice grew colder. The ship that disabled Admiral Teiho's fleet, the Baiko. I have had my best analysts studying it, including analyst Hana, who flagged several critical details before the engagement. At her small desk in the Intelligence Bureau, Hana felt her heart skip when she heard her name. She had been listening to the meeting on a low-level access channel, something she was definitely not supposed to be doing. She held her breath, and kept listening. Hana's analysis identified that the Beko's hull is composed of materials not found in our database, Mireille continued. But more importantly, she cross-referenced the Beko's energy signature with every known vessel class in Imperial records, and she found something deeply troubling. Mireille pressed another button. A new set of data appeared on the screens. It showed the energy output of the Beko compared to Imperial ship classes. The Beko's reading was represented by a blue bar. The largest Imperial warship, the Dreadnought class, was represented by a red bar. The blue bar was barely visible on the chart, not because it was small, but because the scale was wrong. When Mireille adjusted the scale, the red bar shrank to almost nothing, and the blue bar stretched across the entire screen. The Beko produces approximately 400 times more energy than our largest warship, Mireille said calmly. 400 times. And based on analyst Hana's readings, it was operating at roughly 12% capacity during the encounter. The room exploded. Admirals started talking over each other. Generals demanded to see the raw data. Someone cursed loudly. Someone else asked if the sensors were broken. Jiwan slammed his hand on his desk so hard that the sound cut through all the noise like a blade. "Silence!" he shouted. The room went quiet. Jiwan's face had changed. The anger was gone. Something that looked, for just a moment, like fear. "Continue," he said to Mireille. "There is one more thing," Mireille said, "and this is the part that I think everyone needs to hear very carefully." She brought up one final piece of data. It was a translation of the Beko's original broadcast signal, the one it had been transmitting when it first entered Sector 44. The signal had been encrypted, but Hana had cracked it using pattern analysis. It was not a military code. It was not a battle signal. It was a standard identification broadcast, the kind every ship sends to tell other ships who they are. The translation appeared on every screen in simple Imperial text. Vessel class, Civilian Medical Rescue Transport. Designation, Beko, White Tiger. Crew, 1 captain, 4 medical staff. Mission type, emergency evacuation and medical aid. Armament, none. The room was completely silent. No one breathed. Hana, listening from her desk, felt the blood drain from her face. She read the words again and again, hoping she had made a mistake in the translation. She had not. The Beko was not a warship. It had no weapons. It was a medical rescue ship, a space ambulance. It was crewed by a captain and 4 doctors, and it had just disabled 12 Imperial destroyers in 7 seconds while operating at 12% power. Commander Yuna, who was also listening to the meeting from the repaired bridge of the Iron Veil, was the one who said what everyone was thinking. She did not say it to anyone in particular. She did not even realize she had said it out loud. But the words came out of her mouth in a whisper that somehow felt louder than anything else that had been said that day. If that is their ambulance, then what do their warships look like? Because no one wanted to think about the answer. Jiwan sat in his chair for a long time. The screens around him showed the faces of 42 military commanders, and for the first time in his memory, every single one of them looked afraid. These were people who had conquered solar systems, people who had burned worlds, people who had never once in their careers faced something they could not overwhelm with force. And now they were all thinking the same thing. If a medical ship with no weapons could do this, then what was the rest of the human fleet capable of? "Mobilize everything," Jiwan said finally. His voice was barely a whisper. "Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. I want the full might of the Galactic Empire on our borders within 72 hours. "Counselor," Mireille said carefully, "a mobilization of that scale has not been done in over 3,000 years. The cost alone—" "I do not care about the cost." Jiwan's voice cracked. Just for a second, The mask slipped, and everyone saw the old man underneath. The old man who had just realized that the universe was not what he thought it was. Do it, now, and send a message to every system, every outpost, every colony. The Empire is preparing for war. The connection ended. The screens went dark. Jiwan sat alone in his office, surrounded by the broken pieces of his data screen on the floor. Outside, on a mining moon in Sector 44, Captain Do-yoon was loading 200 grateful human colonists onto the Baiko. A young colonist, a girl of about 10 years old, tugged on his sleeve and asked him, "Captain, are the aliens going to hurt us?" Do-yoon knelt down and smiled at her. It was a warm smile, the kind that made people feel safe. "No," he said. "Nobody is going to hurt you. I promise." And he meant it. But, because he knew exactly what was behind him, far beyond the border, waiting quietly in the dark. 15,000 ships, built by a species that advanced 10 times faster than anyone else, made of materials no one had ever seen, carrying weapons no one could imagine, crewed by people who smiled warmly and asked politely, and kept their promises. The humans were not angry. They were not looking for war. They were not conquerors, but they protected their own. And the Empire had just given them a very good reason to pay attention. 72 hours. That was how long Jiwan had given the Empire to prepare. 72 hours to move 2 million warships to the border. 72 hours to wake up an army that had been sleeping for centuries, fat and lazy from 1,000 years without a real fight. It was not enough. Not even close. The first problem was that most of the Empire's ships were old. Really old. Many of them had not moved from their docking stations in decades. They were showpieces, symbols of power, designed to look impressive floating above conquered worlds. When the order came to mobilize, hundreds of ships could not even start their engines. Others started, but broke down before they left their home systems. Fuel supplies were low because no one had expected to actually use them. Crews were untrained because peace, forced, brutal imperial peace, had made training feel unnecessary. The second problem was fear. Taeho's report had spread, not through official channels. Jiwan had tried to keep it classified, but through whispers, stolen copies, and the simple truth that secrets do not stay secret when 7,000 crew members saw the same impossible thing. Within 48 hours, every officer in the Imperial Navy had heard some version of the story. A human ambulance had shut down 12 destroyers in 7 seconds. The details changed with each telling. Some versions said 3 seconds. Some said the human ship was invisible. Some said it had moved through the destroyers like a ghost. But the core truth remained the same. Something was out there that the Empire could not beat. Admiral Taeho spent those 72 hours doing the only useful thing he could think of. He studied. He replayed the sensor recordings of the encounter over and over, watching the Baiko move through his fleet. And he found things that made his stomach turn. "Look at this," he said to Yuna on the second day, pointing at a slowed-down replay of the encounter. When the Baikas passed each of our ships, it did not just disable the power cores. It also corrected a microfracture in the Stormblade's hull plating. See? Right here. The fracture was an old maintenance issue that we had been meaning to fix for months. The human ship fixed it, while disabling us. Yuna stared at the data. It fixed our ship while shutting us down? Yes. And look at this. Taeho pulled up another recording. When our life support switched to emergency power, the backup systems on 3 of our ships had faults that could have caused oxygen recycler failures within 2 hours. The Baika repaired those faults too. Every ship's emergency life support was fully functional when the main power went offline. The human made sure none of us would die. That level of precision, that level of awareness of our own systems, it means they understand our technology better than we do, Taeho finished. They scanned 12 ships, identified every critical fault, repaired the ones that could kill us, and disabled everything else, all in 7 seconds, all while we were shooting at them. Yuna was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "They were being kind." Taeho nodded. "Yes, that is what scares me the most." On the capital world, Hana had not slept in 2 days. She sat at her desk, surrounded by empty food containers and cold cups of tea, staring at screens filled with data. She had become something of an unofficial expert on humans now. Mirai had given her access to classified files and told her to learn everything she could. What she found was a picture that got darker with every layer she peeled back. The humans had not just expanded to 97 systems. They had transformed those systems. Where the Empire stripped planets for resources and left them as dead rocks, the humans had done something different. They had built gardens. They had cleaned polluted atmospheres. They had restored ecosystems on worlds that the Empire had abandoned as worthless. One planet that Imperial records listed as barren, no strategic value, was now covered in forests and oceans, with a population of 50 million humans living in cities that produced zero waste. They were not just building ships. They were building a civilization, a real one. Not an empire held together by fear and force, but something held together by— Hana struggled to find the right word in Imperial language. The closest translation was care. And their technology was beyond anything she had imagined. Hana found traces of human research programs that made Imperial science look like children playing with toys. They had solved problems that the Empire's best scientists had been working on for millennia. Faster-than-light communication without signal delay, energy generation from sources that Imperial physics said were impossible, medical technology that could rebuild a body from a single cell, and most terrifying of all, material science so advanced that they were building things out of matter that the Empire literally could not identify. Hana wrote all of this in a report and sent it to Mirai. Then she added one final paragraph that she knew would cause trouble. Recommendation: the Galactic Empire should not engage the humans in military conflict. Based on all available data, the technological gap between our civilizations is not a difference of degree, but a difference of kind. We are not behind them by years or decades. We are behind them by a fundamental shift in understanding of how the universe works. Engaging them in war would not be a battle. It would be the equivalent of a primitive ground army attacking a spacefaring fleet with sharp sticks. I strongly recommend immediate diplomatic contact and a full cessation of military mobilization. The report reached Jiwon's desk. He read Hana's recommendation. Then he deleted it and continued with the mobilization. On the morning of the 3rd day, the Empire's border fleet was in position. It was not 2 million ships. Many had broken down or been too slow, but it was still the largest military force assembled in 3,000 years. Over 800,000 warships stretched across the border between Imperial space and the vast unknown of the outer territories. They filled space like a wall of metal and light, their weapons hot and their shields at maximum. Jiwon addressed them all through a galaxy-wide broadcast. His voice was strong and confident, the way it always was when he was pretending not to be afraid. Soldiers of the Empire, for 10,000 years, we have been the masters of this galaxy. No species has ever threatened us. No force has ever broken us. Today, we stand ready to show the universe that this has not changed. Whatever lies beyond our borders, we will face it as we have always faced our enemies, with overwhelming power and absolute resolve. The Empire is eternal. The Empire is unbreakable. The Empire will endure. The speech was met with silence. On most ships, the crews had already heard the stories. They knew about the Baekho. They knew about the 7 seconds. And they stood at their stations, looking out at the empty space beyond the border, and they waited. Taeho listened to the speech from the bridge of the Iron Veil, which had been moved to join the border fleet. He said nothing. Yuna said nothing. They just watched the space ahead and waited like everyone else. She had packed a small bag of personal belongings and placed it under her desk. She did not know why. She just felt like she should be ready to leave quickly. Then, at exactly noon on the third day, the sensors lit up. It started at the far edge of detection range, a single blip, then 2, then 10, then 100, then 1,000. The sensor operators across 800,000 ships watched their screens fill with contacts, and the contacts kept coming. They bloomed across the sensor displays like stars appearing in a sky that had been dark a moment before. The count climbed: 2,000, 5,000, 8,000, 12,000, 15,000. The numbers kept rising. Tejo watched his screen as the contacts appeared, and he felt a strange calm settle over him. It was the calm that came when you realized that the thing you had been afraid of was finally here, and there was nothing left to do but face it. "Admiral," Yuna said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I am reading over 17,000 contacts. Each one has an energy signature at least 100 times greater than the Baiko. 100 times greater." Tejo did the math in his head. If the Baiko was 400 times more powerful than an Imperial dreadnought, and these new ships were 100 times more powerful than the Baiko, then each one of these ships was... He stopped doing the math. The numbers were meaningless. It was like trying to calculate how much stronger the ocean was than a cup of water. The comparison simply did not work. On the capital world, Ji-Wan watched the sensor feed in his office. The color drained from his face. His hands shook. He reached for his communicator to give an order, any order, but no words came out. For the first time in 200 years, the most powerful man in the galaxy had absolutely nothing to say. And then a signal came through. It broadcast on every frequency simultaneously, reaching every ship, every station, every planet in the Empire at the same time. It was in the human language, but the translation was instant and perfect, as if the humans had already learned every Imperial dialect. The message was simple. It was warm, and it was terrifying. "This is Fleet Admiral Unbi of the United Human Defense Force. We received a report that one of our rescue ships was fired upon while conducting an emergency evacuation of human civilians in your territory. We also received a report that 200 of our citizens were stranded on an Imperial mining moon without adequate life support. Captain Duyun has confirmed that all civilians are safe and that no Imperial personnel were harmed during the incident. We are grateful for that." A pause. The entire galaxy held its breath. "We are not here to fight. We are not here to conquer. We are here because our people were in danger, and we take care of our people. If the Galactic Empire wishes to discuss this situation peacefully, we welcome that conversation. We have always been willing to talk." Another pause. Longer this time. And when the voice continued, it was just as warm, just as polite. But underneath it was something that made every living being in the Empire understand, on a level deeper than words, that the universe had just changed forever. "But if anyone threatens our people again, we will come back. And next time, we will not ask first." The signal ended. 17,000 ships hung in space beyond the border, each one glowing with an energy that Imperial sensors could barely comprehend. They did not advance. They did not fire. They just waited there, calm and patient, like a parent standing at the edge of a playground, watching. And across the Galactic Empire, from the capital world to the farthest colony, from the highest counselor to the lowest soldier, a single thought echoed in every mind. We are not alone anymore, and we are not the strongest. We never were.